Saw 10 is the latest in the Saw franchise, and this one takes place chronologically between the first two Saw films. It sees Tobin Bell, aka John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, going down out of the country to get some medical treatment for his brain cancer, only to find out that the entire operation is a scam. I've got some thoughts here for you, but like always, before I get into it, welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me. It's all horror and thriller movie content on my channel, so listen, do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard. So being that this has been out now for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and just issue a spoiler warning. That way I can get into all the details and everything and give you my full thoughts. So you have been officially warned. Here we go. I'm assuming I was like most people in that I had very, very low expectations for Saw 10. However, I also think I'm probably like most people in that I was pleasantly surprised by Saw 10 and had a pretty good time with this thing. The opening half hour is all set up. There's not really much here that happens that you wouldn't know just from reading the simple plot synopsis. Now, after this happens, the remaining 3/4 of the movie, most of it takes place entirely in one location as John Kramer quickly gets Amanda to help him out, and they're able to quickly track down and kidnap the people who are running this insurance scam, put them together in this big warehouse, and unleash the traps. Now, just by the sound of it there, it doesn't sound like really anything new. And for the most part, it's really not. It does follow the typical kind of Saw formula. However, the execution of it, I think, is better than most of the films in this franchise. And the big thing is that this movie focuses on John Kramer, which is the best decision this franchise has made since the first couple of movies. And the first 30 minutes of the movie is really kind of this character study as we are seeing him just dealing with the grief of the cancer. And it's kind of crazy because you sort of have feelings for the guy, like you kind of actually feel bad for him a little bit. There's like kind of moments in there where you sort of forget, oh yeah, this guy's a psychopathic serial killer who tortures people to death. And so I think the fact that the movie kind of makes you forget about that at certain points is really just a testament to Tobin Bell's performance. Somehow in this crazy evil character, he's able to bring a little bit of humanity into it and get you to kind of care about this guy a little bit, as crazy and insane as that sounds, but really it's just his performance. He just does a great job. And what's really interesting is that in setting the film up this way, it kind of portrays Jigsaw as the protagonist and these other people as the antagonists, which is definitely something different. And so it was really interesting. That first 30 minutes, I wrote in my notes, like, this doesn't even really feel like a Saw film. And it doesn't, but I think that that's kind of a good thing because it gives you this different sort of setup, mainly focusing on John Kramer, and then that sets up the trajectory of the rest of the film. And so, yeah, I thought that was a really good choice. Saw 10 also does away completely with the sort of police procedural investigative aspect of it. And also, too, in having these characters who are the ones running this insurance scam all together, this is the first time you really have all these characters in the traps and in the room together who they actually know one another. Most of the time, they're just total random strangers. And it's cool because we also get to see John Kramer spying on them and watching them as they go through the traps. Now, let's talk about the traps. I was a pretty big fan of the traps in the movie. They're not maybe the most elaborate ones that we've seen in the franchise, but I think just in terms of their kind of visceral sort of gut punch impact of it, they're pretty gnarly. The one scene where the chick has to saw off her own leg with the ghillie saw and then suck out the bone marrow. Man, I mean, just a brutally intense scene, really effective stuff. All the practical effects I thought looked really top notch. I thought everything looked really convincing. There was maybe one shot or two where her body looked a little bit fake, where it seemed like they were kind of moving it around a little easier than would have really been the reality of it. But that's a really minor nitpick. I thought all the practical effects, the gore, the blood stuff, everything looked really solid. Now, when it comes to these Saw movies, you kind of have to go in with the right expectations, obviously. And look, these movies are completely ridiculous. Of course they are. I mean, they're a logistical nightmare. I mean, trying to get all these traps set up and people in places, and everything just would have to work so perfectly and flawlessly that, yeah, of course, it's totally ridiculous. So you kind of have to disregard that sort of aspect. And in addition to that, yes, there are some ridiculous things that are said, right? The character of John Kramer, when he says a line in the movie that this is not retribution, it's a reawakening. So yeah, is it crazy? Of course it is, but that's kind of why we watch, right? That's sort of why we love these movies. And so this is not really going to win any new converts to the Saw franchise, I can't imagine, but if you're already on board, I really would expect you to have a pretty good time with this. At about 70 minutes in, one of the other victims of the insurance scam, Parker, shows up at the warehouse, and it kind of mixes things up, throws you a little curveball, and John Kramer and Amanda aren't really sure what to do with him or how to trust him. And then it turns out that he's actually in on the whole thing, and he's there to get Cecilia, who is the mastermind behind it all, who's his girlfriend or wife or something. He's there to rescue her. And so I'll give him some credit there. I didn't see that. I didn't call that little twist, so they got me there, which was kind of nice. And I also really like just the whole kind of climactic sequence where the tables get turned and you see John Kramer almost becoming a victim in his own trap, which I thought worked pretty well. There is a little bit of kind of mystery and suspense loss given the fact that you know he's ultimately going to survive and get out of this. And so it loses a little something there, but nothing to really hinder the overall enjoyment of it too much. And then I like that they left the Cecilia character alive at the end, and call me crazy, but I kind of hope we get another one of these. And they have set up I think a really unlikable but pretty solid antagonist that you can't wait to see her get her own. You can't wait to see John Kramer get, revenge on this woman. And so the fact that they left her alive, I think, is a good decision. Being that this is 10 movies in, I would say 9 times out of 10, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm just ready for this franchise, probably needs to be done. But I think there's some new life injected into the Saw franchise, and keeping her alive, I would be interested in seeing that story, and I'd be very curious to kind of see where they go from here, and if they continue to make more of these. I'm in. I think, man, if you were to watch the original Saw, then Saw X and Saw 2, I think you got a pretty solid little trilogy there. And for what it's worth, I would be totally fine if they continued to make more of these and basically just completely disregarded everything after the events of Saw 3 and introduced a completely brand new timeline. Give me more John Kramer, man. Tobin Bell is clearly the best thing about this franchise. I think probably everybody agrees about that, but yeah. Had a pretty good time with Saw 10. Definitely better than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go 7 out of 10 for it. And yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. So those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. Let me know your thoughts. Would love to hear from you. That is all I got. Like always, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.